lakhs and crores of rupees to buy a home in Delhi, National Capital Region, don't we? Guess how many days of good air quality do we get for that whopping investment we make? Sometimes zero, like in the years of 2015, 16 and 18. In these years, Delhiites did not get a single day of good quality air to breathe. In some years, like 2017 and 19, the city managed 2 days of good, healthy air quality to breathe out of 365. Even in a year of COVID-induced lockdown and complete shutdown of economic activity for weeks, which is 2020-21, the capital has managed in all 5 days of good quality air, when air quality index or AQI, which measures harmful particles in the air, dropped to below 50. Now let this sink in. 0, 2 or 5 are the good healthy air quality days that Delhi has registered in each of the last 6 years, according to the Central Pollution Control Board. Today on the Property Show, we will tackle just one of the big contributors of pollution in Delhi-NCR, the construction and demolition waste and dust, which isn't a seasonal problem like the stubble burning in Punjab and Haryana. It's an all-around problem for the region, which only catches attention when air becomes dangerous to inhale. Joining me on the show, Anumita Roychowdhury, Executive Director at Centre for Science and Environment, Singh, Founder and MD, PEC Greening India, and Anurag Mathur, CEO of Savills India. Anumita, I'm going to start with you because I know we've done this over and over again. Air pollution, but the problem keeps resurfacing year on year. Gurgaon chokes on dust from its infrastructure. Now, there are no geographical boundaries between Gurgaon and Delhi. Air pollution back as a talk of the town. What do we do? I mean, Ministry of Environment has set the rules. It's not that we are lacking rules, but we still don't seem to be tackling the dust problem.
You're absolutely right. And that's where we are seeing the big gap between policy regulations and implementation. Now, you are talking about, so C&D waste is only part of it, but we really need the multi-sector action that is needed today. So you need to deal with all streams of waste, vehicles, industry, power plants, all of that together. But what we are noticing, especially in Delhi and NCR, that even though some things have happened in the past, but going forward, the solutions are becoming a lot more complex and difficult to implement. And that's where we are finding huge deficit in infrastructure, in systems, in processes for implementation. And so therefore, today, as you're talking about dust problem, what is absolutely evident is that the basic infrastructure to be able to quantify the amount of dust that we are generating from construction, not only buildings, but also infrastructure. And also the quantum of waste that the cities are generating today, according to which you will design your system for collection, transport, transfer, and then recycling of that waste. And it's really ironical that particularly in the construction sector, C&D waste is not a waste, it's a resource. The entire C&D waste can be brought back to the construction industry as a resource if we can efficiently collect it, reutilize it, recycle this. But the basic infrastructure, and we have done that basic audit in Delhi and Gurugram. And what we are finding that the gaps in the system, that you have the rules, you know where you are supposed to dump it, where you are supposed to collect it, how you need to transfer it, but there are many missing links in that. And that's what is creating the problem today.
So you're saying that we don't even as a city know how much construction dust are we generating. There is no audit across cities, including Delhi and Gurgaon. Singh, I mean, if I'm looking at the numbers, the latest numbers floating around are that we are generating about 530 million tons of construction demolition waste across the country. Now, the Environment Ministry has laid down the rules very clearly in 2016 and 18, which says, and this is what I would like to read out, permission for construction, whether it's infrastructure or it's a building or a project, will be given only when the complete construction and demolition waste management plan is presented. So here's my question to you. Are these plans getting presented at all? Because government seems to be one of the biggest flouters of it all.
Yes. So Manisha, I would say it's a very useful question for the audience as well. We need to address this issue at micro and macro level both. So because when we talk about infrastructure, that's the one thing, but at the micro level and building level as well. Because, source of pollutants is a very important to understand. Because we look into the policy and, their mechanism, governance of policies, which is still a very big challenge. But I feel that when we look into the construction management as a very important component at building level, at project level, whatever size the project you have. So I think looking into the mitigation measures, to look into the pollutants level, how to, reduce the pollutants, how to, not only the reduction, but managing the waste, managing the air pollutants efficiently by applying some mitigation and measures properly at the project site itself. But the problem in India, what we, as an expert feel that we have a lack of awareness because all the stakeholders in the construction industry who are the actual implementer on the site. Actually, they are the laborers, they are your engineering people, they are your contractors. They don't know ABC of, this kind of, what kind of management they need. Because they need to be first, we need a capacity building program for them. We need to sensitize them. Because talking just policies on paper and, talking just measures and documenting it is just not enough. Because we need to have a proper action plan and we need to, look into the competence level of the people who are actually working on the site, whether they are able to manage this problem from the source itself.
But Mala, I can understand that yes, they have to be educated. But the fact of the matter is that the buck needs to stop with maybe the developer or the urban local body or the construction company which is undertaking that infrastructure project. And if I look at some of even the building provisions, I mean like a 3-meter high barricading around the construction area has to be done. You have to cover fine aggregate and excavated earth on site with plastic or geotextile sheets. You have to water sprinkle on fine aggregate sand and excavated earth. This is not rocket science, Anurag, from any angle. This is something that every contractor who's managing the project should be doing. So why is it not happening? Are the rules so lax? Is it monitoring or the fact that nobody cares because there is no punishment at the end of flouting those norms?
So Manisha, 2 points really, and this is a very important topic. I'm not sure if enough attention is being paid to this topic. But really, two issues that addresses your question. Number one is, to my mind, we have the understanding, we have the rules, we have the knowledge, and there are best practices, etc. All of those things are available. The implementation is of course a challenge, enforcement is of course a challenge, and that comes from multiplicity of authorities. There are just too many gaps in our authorities, our implementing agencies, etc., and things slip through them, and no one's really accountable, responsible for that. And number two, and I say it with a bit of a sense of responsibility, construction costs in India are one of the lowest in the world. We are a very economical industry. We produce or erect buildings, etc. at a if you look at per square foot cost, we are very low as compared to many other countries or economies. And that is because our construction methodology, our systems are very primitive. We still haven't utilized mechanization. We haven't used precast, prefabricated, components, and so on and so forth. Now the point is that the world has the technology. It has the know-how to build buildings and infrastructure using materials and techniques, etc., which cause much less pollution. Look, construction activity inherently is polluting, but there are methods and technologies available which can reduce that. Obviously, it costs money.
Are you saying that we're stuck? We might have all these rules, but the fact is that technology-wise, we're still not adopting best practices which can reduce the pollution at every stage of construction. Anumita, I'm going to come back to you and ask you that very important question which you also raised. You said, look, construction waste is not waste. almost everything can be recycled, other than the fact that the gen sets that you might run during construction, so those might spew a lot of pollution when the construction activity is happening, or the materials which are getting transported, if the vehicles are not clean, then they also add to the pollution. But here we are just focusing on the construction waste. In small colonies, there are, even in Delhi, there are these single or double floor homes which are getting broken down. I have seen for days there is a cloud of dust in the colony and surrounding areas. There's absolutely nobody held responsible or accountable. I asked the construction, the site supervisor, where is all this brick and this thing going? And he said, हम कहीं जाके इसको डाल देंगे मैडम जी, आप क्यों चिंता करती हैं? I mean, I have gone and checked and they are just dumping it. So you can recycle everything. So not only can you control dust, you can also recycle every bit of it.
You're very right, So the problem that we are encountering today, so all the rules that have been framed so far, to enforce that, we have got something called environment impact assessment requirement for big construction. So the construction that are about 20,000 square meter and above, they have to go through some formal process of saying what is going to be their C&D management system. But those which are below that 20,000, the small, tiny construction that you're talking about, who's regulating them? Because there is really no pressure on them. Okay, so that's so many, such numerous. On the other hand, there is construction and there is also demolition. While for construction, we still have some formal systems, demolition business today is completely unorganized, and it's a completely unorganized sector, and no one is looking at that. So therefore, we are in this kind of a situation where, if you look at it nationally, that whatever little estimates, official estimate that we have for the C&D based generation, about 150,000 tons, but that is also, they say, is about million metric tons a day. It's, they say, but even that unofficial estimates are several times higher than that. But even of that, we have the capacity to collect and recycle just about 1%. About 53 cities were supposed to have recycling facility, but only 13 have it so far. And this means that our dependence on primary material, virgin material like mineral stone, sand, iron, timber, all of that, which is putting so much pressure on an environment, we are not substituting that with the recycled material, which we should have done by now. So such a huge waste, colossal waste. So we really have to now look into that. And at another level, there are some policies which are at cross purpose. So see, at one level in Delhi and other cities, where we have really invested to create recycling plants, and material is being collected and they are creating new material out of it.
Right.
But the offtake of that material, recycled material, is also so limited. People are not buying that.
Why? And why? Because I know that Delhi does have 2 construction and demolition waste processing units which were set up by IL&FS. Why is it not being picked up? Is the material or the recycled material which comes out of it of poor quality, or just there's no understanding and everyone doesn't want to take a chance?
In fact, if I respond to that, there is a requirement as far as in Delhi, only for government construction, they have said 10% of the material should be recycled material. But it's not mandated for everyone else.
Okay, so you've highlighted 2 problems. One, you've said that there are no demolition guidelines. And I think a lot of dust in a city like Delhi is getting generated with the demolition of smaller projects, right, which are not of that 20,000 square feet. Mala, give me some solutions to the problem. I mean, we don't have much time, but we are running into hitting AQIs of 300 plus now, which is again very dangerous.
Yes. So Manisha, what I feel that, as rightly said by the previous panelist, that this is recycling of the waste, and especially at a very centralized level. When you look into this waste management issue, this is very, very challenging to tackle as well. And because it requires a lot of sensitization and involvement of other stakeholders, which I feel personally we need to focus on first principle, which is from the source itself, which I used to educate always.
Okay.
Because you need to look into your problem from yourself first as a responsible developer, as a responsible citizen, whosoever the stakeholders belonging to those project development, it may be a government, it may be a private project, whatever. So I believe that now they need to look into the green construction practices, because this is what the need of the hour. Because the problem is not just the waste management. It is about the dust emissions.
It is dust generation, and we are talking about it because, you know, suddenly Gurgaon chokes on dust has become a headline because our AQI has touched 300. So far, Gurgaon has been choking in dust, but no one's talked about it because AQI has been moderate. Anurag, solutions. I mean, what do we do? How do we get everyone's attention to the fact that the construction and demolition dust problem is a year-round problem, and we need to stop it? Do we need to have very stiff penalties? Because I think everybody believes that they can get away with it. The small developers for sure who are demolishing, or small construction work which is happening, contractors have absolutely no fear.
Yeah. No, look, very clearly, to my mind, it's now time to eliminate some practices. Just ban some practices. That means that you will have to move up the value chain. You will have to expend more money. It becomes more expensive to demolish and just throw it away. And therefore, people will have, at the moment, there's no cost to it, right? You're not paying anything for doing something which is as irresponsible or polluting. You don't have a downside of doing that. Someone else or you collectively as a community, you bear the downside. But there has to be individual accountability, and there has to be a downside for someone doing that. And just blanket ban on some of the activities round the year, no matter what's the size of the project is and whether it has the MOEF approval or not. Some of those activities have to completely be stopped and eliminated, which if that means that your cost of construction and everything else related to it goes up, so be it.
So be it. Anumita, RWs to be held responsible, urban local bodies to be held responsible. Who should police this kind of demolition work which is happening and construction work which is not getting sprinkled with water, etc.?
The entire chain, I would say. So starting from the construction site, where you really have to make the construction agencies accountable first for the in-situ management, and they really have to detail out the plan, and they should not be allowed to construct if they have not given the plan of how they are going to do the dust management on site. Second is the whole responsibility of transferring the waste to the recycling plant. Now, you know, in Gurgaon and other places, we have seen that people don't want to pay that transfer charges. Or the reprocessing charges. So they will rather call the informal sector guys to come and take and dump it somewhere, right? So we have to look into those and reform those processes. Third, even we are recycling, but you know what the perverse thing is, that today GST on the recycled material is 18%, whereas on the primary material is 5%.
Really?
So, yes. So the tax on the recycled material is higher than your virgin primary material. Now, these distortions will have to go. And then there is a whole segregation. You know, if you don't, and today there's an incentive for the collector. They are paid to collect and transfer, and they pay for that, but not segregated waste. So you have to incentivize segregation. And you certainly want state governments to play a much bigger role, because to create collection center, material recovery center, you also have to give land. And land is emerging as one of the very big issues today. So there are so many dots that we need to join to get the full solution.
Well, at this moment, I think we have to wrap up because we've run out of time. But all that we are saying is that, listen, get attention back on construction and demolition dust. It's a year-round problem, and not just the farmer stubble burning which is causing air pollution. Of course, that increases it to dangerous levels. Thank you so much for joining me. Anurag stays back for another very interesting discussion on the other side, because Karnataka RERA has said that they will not give an approval to a project unless the builder comes back with sources of water supply. So we'll discuss that when we come back.